What is going on, everybody? This is the Reformation Keegan back with another quick video. Today, I want to do something that I haven't done in a bit. I'm going to do a what if. What if Keegan had the pencil? So in pro wrestling, the proverbial pencil, the individual who is booking the matches and storylines, they are in control of the entire arc of someone's story. So today, we're going to do the Montreal Screwjob. I'm going to try and make this video concise, and hopefully it makes sense. So there's a different timeline that we can go through, but one of the things I want to do is I want to expand some horizons with the Montreal Screwjob, because since 1997 the Montreal Screwjob has been discussed all the time. It's always a top discussion in pro wrestling. And if you don't know what it is, Bret Hart got screwed at Survivor Series 1997 when he was about to go to WCW. However, he was still the WWF champion at the time. So, how did this happen? So, Bret Hart was leaving, and Vince did not want Bret to leave with the WWE Championship. So, in order to play it safe, Vince screwed Bret Hart, awarding the championship to Shawn Michaels, even though Bret Hart did not submit to the sharpshooter. What we can do is go a few different routes. So I'm going to do them, but I'm going to try and keep this video under 10 minutes long. So if I go a little bit over, I apologize. So anyway, this is what I'm thinking. And The Undertaker, I believe, has said this before too. There is a route you can go at Survivor Series with Bret. So hypothetically, let's say Bret Hart is not going to re-sign with the company. Let's say Bret Hart is fully leaving and he has to drop the WWE Championship on the way out. Instead of Shawn Michaels, there is a way that we can still get to having Shawn Michaels as the WWE Champion heading into WrestleMania 14, since now the plan, since Bret Hart is gone, is Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it's going to be the coronation of the Texas Rattlesnake. What I think we could do is this. Instead of Shawn Michaels being the number one contender for the WWE Championship, we have The Undertaker become the number one contender. And this would make sense because, one, Bret Hart defeated The Undertaker at SummerSlam to win the WWE Championship. And two, what else happened is Bret Hart wrestled The Undertaker at One Night Only in a classic, and that was not a definitive finish either. So it would make sense to have a third match where The Undertaker finally gets back the WWF Championship. So if you still want to have the Kane debut at Bad Blood inside Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels beats The Undertaker, that is fine. However, what you can do is you could create a reasoning for Shawn Michaels not really becoming the full number one contender. And what can happen is Shawn Michaels can basically be suspended by Vince McMahon for the stuff that D-Generation X has been doing. That's one way you can go. Or the other way that you can go is Shawn Michaels is angry at the fact that Kane actually but interfered on his behalf, even though he got the win inside Hell in a Cell because he didn't do it definitively. You can go that route too, but what I think would be better is if Shawn Michaels rebelled against Vince McMahon, because Vince says, Shawn, Vince is still trying to be a babyface here, and Vince is mad because Shawn didn't win convincingly. So there's a new number one contenders match, which I wouldn't put Shawn Taker in the same match because they just had the Hell in a Cell, even though they did wrestle at the Royal Rumble mere months later. In any case, what you could do is you could suspend Shawn Michaels just for the stuff he's been doing with DX anyway, and at the end of Survivor Series, The Undertaker wins the WWE Championship, Shawn Michaels super kicks The Undertaker, and then you have the build for their casket match at the Royal Rumble. And I know this sounds like a lot, but it's a pivot you have to make if you want to avoid the Montreal Screwjob. So then The Undertaker can win the championship and then go on to the Royal Rumble where he drops it to Shawn because Kane costs Undertaker the match. But the one thing you run doing this is contradicting yourself, where if Kane costs Shawn Michaels the match, or costs Undertaker the match, then you have a few problems. Because if Kane costs Undertaker the match in Hell in a Cell, and then Shawn's mad about it, then how is Shawn going to react again at the Rumble if Kane costs The Undertaker again? What you can do is you can have Shawn go more heelish like he was doing into WrestleMania 14 as a heel. So this can actually be planting the seeds for Shawn's heel turn, which I think here would make a ton of sense. So you have the casket match with Shawn and Undertaker. Kane costs the Undertaker the match. Shawn still heads into WrestleMania 14 with the WWE Championship, and the only pivot is that after the Hell in a Cell match, we have to find something creatively for Shawn Michaels to do, and you could promise him to, end the show at Survivor Series without having the match. Can do that. Or the other way we can go is you trust Bret, and you have Bret go over at Survivor Series, but then the next night on Raw, you have Bret drop the championship to Shawn Michaels because Shawn was already willing to put Bret over the night before. So Bret returns the favor the night after on Raw, which I believe was in Ottawa, and Bret drops the championship. It's another route you can go. Or what else you can do is you can have Bret at Survivor Series retain the championship, but then drop it to The Undertaker the next night. But then the other thing that you would run is that Shawn's dilemma here would be that, well, I got to put over Bret before he goes out. So that's an option that I think would have a few issues. So the other option is that you can screw him. But I think maybe the best option here would be to have Bret drop it to The Undertaker. Because then, like I said, you can still get to the point where you crown Shawn Michaels as the WWE Champion, and we can still get Shawn and Austin at Mania. Because if I remember correctly, the original plan was Bret and Austin round 2. Or sorry, it was going to be Bret and Shawn. And then I think there was talk of Bret and Austin round 2 as well. I could be wrong. But where you can go from here too is if you think that the Montreal Screwjob's at work, then there's something you can do with this. You can do the Screwjob, and if Bret's in on it, then fine. And what you can do is you could promise a return later. Because Bret was never going to be in WCW for the long haul. I think what was going to happen is Bret was going to make a deal to return eventually to Vince when Vince had more money to afford him, and then Bret would finally get that bigger contract that he wanted. So let's say we fast forward to 2002, hypothetically. The Screwjob, in quotes, has happened, and WCW's been bought out by Vince. What you can do to gain a lot of traction for WrestleMania 18 is promote Bret Hart's return to WWE in Toronto, in Canada. I don't think it gets much bigger than that. The only place that would be bigger is Montreal, in my opinion, or Calgary. But Toronto's the second, third best option. So what you can do from here is you can tell a story that Vince has bought in WCW, but not everybody in the invasion has returned. So you can have Vince start calling people out. Nobody's man enough to go kick Vince's ass. But then you start hearing rumors about Bret Hart, and Bret Hart is looking to exercise some revenge on Vince finally and gather it up to come back to the WWE, because this has been a void that Bret needs to fill. And Vince hears about these rumors and says, well, if Bret Hart ever wants to show up, I'll kick his ass. I screwed him once, I'll screw him again, and this time I'll do it fully myself. I won't need Shawn Michaels. I won't need anybody else. I will personally kick Bret Hart's ass. Bret Hart answers the challenge, and it's set Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 18. And this isn't a star rating match. That's not what it's about. Wrestling's about business. And Vince versus Bret at WrestleMania 18 would have done great business, because Bret wouldn't have had any of his injuries, wouldn't have had the stroke, and Vince would still be at pretty much a physical peak. And I think that Bret and Vince in Canada in a match would draw massive numbers. And then from here, Bret Hart can do the match with Vince, completely beat the tar out of Vince, win the match, and then Bret can have like a mini 2 to 3 year runner depending how long he wants to go. You can put him on SmackDown, because I think he'd fit perfectly there, because SmackDown's the wrestling show. You would have Bret Hart feuding with the likes of Edge, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle eventually, The Undertaker again, and just all these great people, even other guys, Brock Lesnar, there's so many guys he could go against. And I think that would have been really great. So you could do something like that where Bret joins SmackDown in 2002. We get Bret and Brock. That'd probably be the feud. And Bret gets one more world title run. Bret gets a match at WrestleMania 19. You can do it against either Taker, Benoit, Eddie, whoever. Would be a great match. And then Bret at Survivor Series 2003 challenges Shawn Michaels to rectify the screw job. Keep this story going. And since Shawn is born again and a brand new individual, he accepts the challenge. Those two have a match at Survivor Series 2003, and Shawn Michaels taps out to the sharpshooter. Shawn tries to put Bret in the sharpshooter. Bret counters just in time, hooks in his own sharpshooter, wins the match. And then for WrestleMania 20, you can either do a trilogy or this could be the first time ever, depending on what you want. Keep them, far apart for a while, but we get Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20, and Bret Hart retires. Unless Bret Hart wants to wrestle longer and you could do Bret and Kurt later. This is just me speaking hypothetically. So let me know what you think. This was a lot of fun to do. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back with more soon.